So I'm making this video just to get you familiar with the as-is contract before we get the contract, because there's a lot to go over. It is a 13-page contract, so it's easier if you're familiar with the main parts of it before you get presented with a contract, because that way when the contract comes, you already kind of know what you're looking for. So this is the contract that you have here. This is the most common one that we get. If we get something different, we'll have to go over it. But this is the FAR Bar contract. It's the Florida Realtors Association and the Bar Association. They got together and gave us some attorney-based contracts that we all use. We just fill in the blanks. So when we get this contract, it should be noted, I'm not an attorney. I don't intend to be an attorney. What I'm giving is not legal advice. So first thing is that what I've highlighted here in pink, this is the things that I check over just to make sure they're correct. You know, that it's simple stuff. Your name, the buyer's name, the name of the property, make sure the folio number is correct, things like that. Section 1B is going to spell out things that are included with the sale. These are things that you're leaving in the property. Typical things are going to be the washer and dryer. If there's other things that you are leaving there that aren't attached to the house, if there's any furniture or whatever, we're going to put it on that line. And then line E is super important too. These are things that you are not including in the sale. As of right now, they're on the property, part of the property, but you're taking them with you. There might be a chandelier, some sort of light fixture. TVs that are attached to the wall need to be written down here. If you're taking like your Tesla charger or your Ring camera, you're taking that with you, it needs to be on the line here to make sure that that buyer is very clear of the fact that they're not getting that item. And obviously the most important part for you, it would be your purchase price. Hopefully this number is one that you're happy with. And then all those other lines here are going to spell out how they're going to be making payment, whether it's going to be cash transaction, financed. It will have to be spelled out there. The escrow agent, that's the person who's holding the money before closing and is going to be doing the closing for us. At the bottom there in green is the deadline. That is the deadline that'll be a date that's on that line. That's when we have to give them an answer as to whether or not we're accepting the contract. After that date, this contract becomes null and void if it's not executed, meaning if it's not agreed and signed by that date. Page 2, this is an important one too, the closing date, because you need to look at your calendar, make sure you're not going to be out of town or have some big work thing that you can't be at. I try to avoid weekends and holidays because that's a whole mess, but you just want to make sure that that date works for you and your family in your calendar and your moving things. The closing date is the date that you have to be 100% out of the house, preferably the day before, so make sure that date works for you. If not, we negotiate it. Scrolling down, some other things to note is Section 7, assignability. We always want that third one checked. That means that whoever is giving you this contract is going to be the one responsible for it. We'd never accept it with that first one checked, meaning they can just hand it off to somebody else and be like, whatever. We want them to be held legally responsible. You're legally tied in. We want them legally tied in. Financing, number 8, there's dates and things that I follow along. We just need to know how they're planning to pay for the house. And also in green or yellow at the bottom, I've highlighted that's where you're going to have to initial every single page. There's 13 pages of this contract. You want to read through, or at least skim all 13 pages and make sure you understand it. If you have questions, please ask. Section 9 on page 3 spells out all of the things that you're responsible for the cost of at closing. These are things that were spelled out on that net sheet that we discussed at the beginning, but it goes over them here, puts it in the contract. That way everybody knows who's responsible for what. Title evidence, that's something in the dates that I follow as I go along. For page 4, those check marks The typical thing for South Florida for Broward County is to have number 3 checked. That shows that you have $200 worth of the lien search or the tax search, municipal search, whatever it's called. But that's also spelled out in the net sheet, so that's a cost that were already prepared for. Home warranty, whether or not we've offered one, will be checked here. Special assessments, if your HOA or your condo association or something has some assessments, this will be explaining who's responsible for paying for those assessments. On page 5, this is probably also one of the most important things too, is your inspection period. I always like inspection periods to be small, because during the inspection period is when your buyer can walk away for any reason. They don't even have to have a bad inspection. They don't even have to do an inspection. They can just walk away. So you want to make sure that during the inspection period, you keep it in your mind that this contract isn't completely solid yet. So I like to keep it, ideally I like to go for like 3 to 5 days, 7 at most. Just depending on the calendar, if there's a holiday or you're going to be out of town and the property's not going to be accessible to the people, we need to take that into account, because we need to allow them to come in the property to do their inspections. And if we can't allow that, we can't necessarily expect them to get the inspections done. So we want to give them enough time to do their inspections, but a short amount of time, so then that way we are certain once the inspection period is over, it gives us a little bit more security of knowing that this sale really is going to happen, and we can prepare for your next move. So you want to make sure what that date is, and these are calendar days. So if you accept this contract on, let's say, a Friday, and it's a 3-day inspection window, that inspection window ends Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That ends on Monday. And these inspection periods end at midnight. So Tuesday morning, if they haven't asked for anything or made any changes, then the inspection period is closed. Again, going through, you have to initial every page. What were some other things that I'd like to point out to you? At the bottom of page 11, anything that's checked here, any one of them, automatically adds them in to being part of the contract. So we'll need to make sure to understand those documents as well. They're going to be separate. Obviously, there's a bunch of them here, so I'm not going over it in this video. But another main one that you're going to see just about every time is going to be the GG. That talks about the agent's commission. And this is something that we've discussed in the net sheet as well. So we'll just want to look over whatever document they give us alongside this contract and make sure that we understand that too. The page 12, the additional terms, here on this one, it's blank. A lot of times agents or brokerages will put whole paragraphs in here. So we need to make sure that whatever they've put in here is something that you're comfortable with. A typical thing is that they ask you to close out any permits and pay any fines or assessments. And some of that is already in here anyway, but those are just common things that I see all the time. We just need to keep an eye on whatever goes in on that line. And then we get to page 13, and that's when you sign. If everybody agrees with everything, it all gets signed. If there's any changes to this document in negotiating or whatever, if we strike anything out or make any changes, then we go back and initial any changes that were made. And once everybody is signed and agreed and initialed and all of that, then it becomes an executed contract and we move forward towards closing.